period 100 years ago when Loyola was founded, I think we gained some insight into this. We can imagine the situation in Tarrytown. It had been a high school. Seemingly the girls did not want to leave. So they kind of had a finishing school. And then the college came because they wanted to continue. And as our historian, so the boundary was being pushed. And as our historian, Sister Kathleen Connell, notes, the young women were to be empowered to engage in the reality of their times. Not only hold their own in a man's world, but keep the nation's house in order. And so, even early on, I think it's fascinating that as early as 1917, during the First World War, there were courses in law and political economy added to history and philosophy, modern languages, and other subjects. And there's a beautiful advertisement in the Sun magazine, which reads, "The time has gone," this is 1917, "the time has gone by when to be feminine means to be helpless." And quoting Mother Butler, it added, "The world has never needed womanly intelligence and sympathy as much as it needs today." So that was 1917. Certainly the boundaries were being pushed globally too. When revolution took place in Portugal in 1910, this led to the persecution, really, and expulsion of religious. And thought was given to our sisters temporarily going back to their homes and their families for a while. The first steps were taken in that direction. Then other options were considered, founding a mission outside the country. By 1911, exactly 100 years ago, the sisters were welcomed in a diocese in Brazil, where the bishop encouraged them to found 6 or more schools. And over the years they did that, exactly. Transcending the boundary of crisis opened up a strong educational mission in a new subcontinent. Now I've spoken a little bit about roots. I'd like to turn now to wings. Transcending boundaries. How can these roots, which we have talked about, I'm so sorry to have my back to some of you over there. How can these roots, the RSHM charism, the Marymount educational legacy, how can they help to address the challenges posed by Father Nicholas to LMU and to other institutions of higher learning? What boundaries have to be transcended to shape a future for a humane, just, and sustainable globe? Returning to our proverb, we might ask, what wings can help to give form and flight to the dreams and hopes that another world is possible, a globalization of solidarity and hope? And certainly, we live in a world where social, cultural, and economic differences are often the fault lines along which conflict breaks out. There are boundaries of, we know them too well, intolerance, racism, sexism, secularism, and fundamentalism. Yet, we believe that we can harness the energy of our charisms, the depth of our faith, and our passion for justice to work collaboratively so that these same differences become meeting places for grace to unfold, as we noted in our chapter document. Much depends on where we stand, and I'm reminded of this famous image, which we will all recognize, the blue marble image. Provides an unparalleled reminder of this, enabling us to see our planet from a new perspective. And the perspective is transformative, changing us as well as what we see. It was the Saudi Arabian astronaut, Sultan bin Salman al Saud, who famously observed, and this was in 1985 as he was orbiting the globe in the space shuttle Discovery, so it's not that picture, that one you'll see in a minute. The first day, we pointed to our countries. The third or fourth day, we were pointing to our continents. By the fifth day, we were aware of only one Earth. When seemingly concrete, identifiable boundaries disappear, our sense of we, our sense of our, is radically shifted. Vulnerable and endangered Earth, the cosmic home of 7 billion people, becomes simply our global village. And I think as we reflect on the challenges of working towards a globalization of solidarity and hope, so that all may have life, we are challenged as RSHM to adopt a global perspective, to look from the underside. In fact, this famous blue marble picture, photograph, was actually turned upside down before it was circulated. Just have a look at it. Why? So that people could relate to it, recognize the features of our world, looking towards the north with its northern bias. Did you recognize it the other way? Well, when we lose our orientation, it is often because we are struggling to go beyond the boundary of our expectations, the familiar markers we use to see and to judge. Transcending boundaries implies we need to be at the edge, to be on the margins, to a different way of seeing, being, and doing in our world today, with its sharp contrasts, its inequality of access and opportunity. Calls us to a radical openness to alternative ways of seeing and judging from the perspective of the poor. And looked at in this way, I would like to suggest that the three frontier challenges that Father Nicolas identified relate to three boundaries that need to be transcended in the mission of institutes of higher education today. They also suggest three different ways of working towards a globalization of solidarity and hope. To transcend the boundary of superficiality, seeing the role of universities as places of instruction, we need to promote, says Father Nicolas, depth of thought and imagination in creative new ways. I'm suggesting transcending the boundary of narrowness really means that centers of service, there is a sense of rediscovering a universality. And transcending the boundary of inequality and exclusion calls for learning and research that is more accessible and makes a difference in our world.